Thank you so much. We'll now felicitate our honored guest on the dais. I request the director of this 27th International Vedanta Congress, Professor A. Nataraju, to kindly felicitate our honored guests on the dais. We'll start with Professor Arindam Chakrabarti, Professor Sukalyan Sen Gupta, sir, Professor Geeta Kumari KK, Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor Sachchidananda Mishra, Member Secretary, ICPR, New Delhi. Thank you so much, sir. I now request Professor Sachchidananda Mishra, Member Secretary, ICPR, New Delhi, to kindly felicitate Professor Nataraju. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you.
सर इंट्रोड्यूस करेंगे
Okay. Yes. I request Professor Sachchidananda Mishra, Member Secretary, ICPR, New Delhi, to kindly introduce our keynote speaker, Professor Arindam Chakrabarti.
Namaste everybody. This is indeed a great matter of pleasure to be here in this program, the inaugural session of 27th Vedanta Congress, International Vedanta Congress. And this is also a very good opportunity to introduce such a scholar who is well versed in Indian philosophical tradition as well as in Western philosophical traditions, who knows very well the importance, the depth of Indian philosophy, and also he knows very well the breadth of Western philosophical traditions. I am talking about Professor Arindam Chakrabarti, who after completing MA in philosophy from Presidency College, which is now a university, Kolkata, and he earned his DPhil from Oxford University in 1982. His PhD thesis, DPhil thesis, is actually very good research work, denying existence, if I am not wrong. That thesis he completed taking into consideration the ideas which are present in Indian philosophical tradition as well as in Western philosophical tradition. How the existence is denied, and the thesis can illustrate very beautifully how a research should be carried on. And Professor Arindam Chakrabarti's presence and guidance is always available to us. I would like to inform the galaxy of these scholars, these scholars, that he last year was ICPR's visiting fellow who delivered lectures in different universities, and that those lectures are going to be published by ICPR very soon. His area of research is so broad. He worked on aesthetics, moral psychology, Nyaya philosophy, Advaita philosophy, Madhva's philosophy, Advaita philosophy, and many a times he takes liberty and actually he comes with so many important arguments to discover a new line of thought, new dimension of research, and also how Indian philosophy can get benefited from the Western tradition, and also how Western philosophical tradition can get benefited from Indian ways of thinking. That is evident in his thoughts always. He delivered so many lectures in Asiatic Society of Bengal, University College London, UK, University of Washington, USA, Delhi University, and he taught 26 years at University of Hawaii, Manoa, where he was the recipient of 3-year Templeton grant between 2018 to 2020. He was the Nirmal and Augustine Matto Chair Professor of Indic Thought and Culture at Philosophy Department of Stony Brook University, New York. In his teaching and research, Professor Chakrabarti has been trying to combine analytic classical Indian philosophy, especially Navya Nyaya, Buddhist philosophy, and his present interest is actually in Kashmir Shaiva branch of philosophy. He also studied and continued his research on continental philosophy. He published more than 100 papers in refereed journals and anthologies. He also published 7 books of philosophical essays in Bangla. He also edited so many volumes. His co-edited volumes include Knowing from Words with B.K. Matilal, Universals, Concepts and Qualities with P.F. Strawson, Apoh Buddhist Nominalism with Mark Sidrit and Tom Telemans, and Mahabharat Now with Shivaji Bandyopadhyay, the Eastern Philosophy of Consciousness and Humanities project with its focus areas on imagination, concepts and emotion he has recently taken off under his direction. His latest large monograph, Realism, Interlinked Objects, Subjects and Other Subjects, published by Bloomsbury, London, came out in 2019. He is currently working on finishing the book of questions, Analytical Introduction to Indian Philosophies. And these are actually very basic introductions regarding the scholarship of Professor Arindam Chakrabarti, and his way of dealing with concepts, his way of dealing with issues is so unique that even he is actually traditional scholar as well as a modern, ultra-modern scholar, because he is very well equipped with the ideas which are present in Indian philosophical tradition, but also he is very much critical of those ideas. Critical in the sense that he takes all the issues from a broader perspective. He does not criticize Indian philosophical concepts only for the sake of criticism. Rather, he evaluates them. His so many works give so many light to the researchers, and they are also engaging some dialogues and many issues. So this is actually a very brief introduction of Professor Arindam Chakrabarti, and we are fortunate to have such a scholar here in this inaugural session of this 27th International Vedanta Congress. And I think his guidance and his keynote address will set the tone of this in 27th International Vedanta Congress. Thank you very much.
अंतेषु यम आहुर एक पुरुषम व्याप्य स्थितम रोदसी यस्मिन् ईश्वर इति अनन्य विषय शब्दो यथार्थाक्षर अंतर यश्च मुमुक्षुभिर नियमित प्राणादिभिर मृग्यते सस्थाणु स्थिर भक्ति योग सुलभो निश्रेयसायास्तुव. This is Kalidas's, a small one about my Ishtadevi by me. Shatardha Varna Malika, Panchashad Varnamala, Sushumna Dhamni Kalika, Mama iti mrityu parada, Mameti mrityu parada, Kripam karotu sharada. My talk has two titles: Vedanta for Equality Against Greed. For all our English language high praise of Sanatan Indian traditions and Hindu traditions, we have started. The crisis is not global only. The crisis is right here in India because we have started celebrating inequality. And my talk is called Vedanta for Equality because Mahabharata, which traditionally is regarded as the only way to understand the deeper meaning of the Vedas, Itihasa Puranabhyam Vedam Samupabringayet. Mahabharata's central concept of dharma is anrishangsya, non-cruelty, not even ahimsa, non-cruelty. Anishangsya, paro dharma. Opposite of nishangsa. Nishangsa is cruel. Sacrificing an animal in one cut is not cruel. Cutting the animal slowly is cruel. Killing an enemy, even if they are your older, taking Drona's head off, is violent, not cruel. But saying insulting things and burning somebody's heart by harsh words, according to Mahabharata, is cruel. Mahabharata says that the wounds and the cuts and the bloodsheds of weapon, of a knife, can heal, but the wounds of abusive words and insult never heals. Rohate sayakair viddham vanam parashunahatam vacha duruktam bibhatsam nasangrohati vak kshatam. This is what the Vice President was lamenting, that our senates and parliaments and upper house, lower house have become a place of cruelty. But Yudhishthira got confused. He asks in one section of Shanti Parva. You are defining dharma as cruelty. But who is cruel? What is the definition of cruel? And you won't believe. Krishna gives an answer. Not Krishna, Bhishma. Bhishma is the speaker. Bhishma says, one who surrounded by starving, homeless, poor people eats a highly expensive meal, charvam, chaushyam, tolejyam, peyam, in front of starving people. One who holds up a 48-story building in the middle of Dharavi slums. Nishangsha sauchyate. Mahabharata. I'm not making this up. That's the definition of nishamsa. Inequality is nishamsata. Positively speaking, Gita, gist of Mahabharata, the perfume of that 100-petal, 1,000-petal Gitartha Gandhotkatam. That book uses one moral word 3 times. Samatvam yoga uchyate once. Nirdosham hi samanga brahma twice. Yesham samye stitanga mana. We are embarrassed that once the translation of the much maligned demonical view called communism, how was it translated? As Samyavada. Should be Gita's Vada. This Samatva is the briefest definition. As the Vice President was saying, if my views are correct, others are equal. I may disagree, but I have to. Now, what does this have to do with the second title? In the second title, right away, the greatest metaphysical sentence, Isha Vasyamidam Sarvam, with the meaning of Vasyam. 2 meanings are well known. Everybody knows. Vasyam from Vasa, dwelling place. Ithamar is here, dwelling place. Secondly, Vasyam, clothing, covering. With Isha, wrap up the world inside the covering Vasa. In Isa, we all live. Isha Vasyam. We are dwelling places of God. Hrideshi Arjuna Tishtati. These are the 2 meanings. Third, Hiraman is a Kavi. He will know. What is the other meaning of Vasa? Everybody knows. Smell, fragrance. Suvasa. There was a rishi who was very angry. And he stank. His stink was so bad, he was called Durvasa. Although we should be all grateful to him. Not because of Kalidas, because he cursed Shakuntala. And Shakuntala is the one who gave birth to the little boy after whom this country is made. So, Ishavasyam, with God we should perfume the world. Idam Sarvam. Meditations on the first verse of Isha Upanishad. I'll quickly say, I'll take time. So there will be lunch, will be a little late. So these are the 7 short sections that I will talk about. The only difficult technical section is the third one, which is about Raghunatha Shiromani's from Padartha Tattva Nirupanam, his examination of private property, the relationship between Swatva and Swamitva. That I will say very quickly. Please excuse me if you don't fully understand that. But I belong to a tradition of Pandit Vishwabandhu Tarkatirtha, Swami Vidyashri Shatirtha, who was Professor D. Prahladachar, and my logic teacher, Western philosophy teacher, Professor Pranab Kumar Sen. All these three, the daughter of this last one is a professor here in the philosophy department. They all three had one common characteristic. Until 100% clarity is there on every word, they would not go to the next topic. Unfortunately, I cannot do that here. So I will talk about, just mention the first verse. That's the first section, introduction. Then the magic word, mama. Mahabharata says, this is how you spell mrityu, death. With repetition of the word ma, letter ma. Dhyaksharam bhavati mrityu, tiraksharam amritopamam, mameti cha bhaven mrityu, namameti amritam padam. That's the second. Third, technical definition, I might even skip that, Sattva Samitva, except Raghunath Ghosh. Nobody will have the taste of that, right? So, then arguments against private property by the famous senior contemporary of Karl Marx called Proudhon, who wrote a book called Philosophy of Poverty. We should write such a book here because 98% of our country is not super rich. And the paradox of obligatory giving. This is my own discovery about one of the main ethical rules that we are told in the Shikshavalli, Shraddhaya deyam, Ashraddhaya adeyam, Hriya deyam, Shriya deyam, etc. And then I have a cheap joke, which I hope is not that cheap but profound, that we ultimately have to own our property. I am not abolishing private property. Kasya Svidhanam is my single text for this whole lecture. The whole lecture is about whose is wealth. Kasya Svidhanam. Svit Prashne. I started in the little time that I was given, 4 minutes. I said we should do throughout the thing prashnas. Prashna. In Abhinavagupta's Paratringshika Vivaranam, Abhinavagupta says, Iyam tu rahasya vidya, vastu prashna taduttara rupam. At the heart of all reality is a question and answer, question and answer. And that is why the ultimate, we always name Yajnavalkya, Shankaracharya, Bhartrihari, they are great. But who is the perfect beginner? Unfortunately, you can't say the author of Nasadya Sukta because Nasadya Sukta has no author. It's Apaurushaya. But there is one person, a child scolded by his father. A child whose name, like Sachchidananda ji said, my first book has the title, first word of that was denying. His name was with a denial. Na Chiketa. I'm not making this up. Iraman, that's how. Na Janati iti. Chikitushi, Chikit. That means knowing, not knowing. But he knows that he does not know. So he asks. And death, when he faces that third question, he is, I say, in a published writing about death, that when Nachiketa asked, is there life after death or not? Do people survive death or not? You have to tell me. Because even the gods disagree about it. Devairatra api vichikitsitam pura. I say, death died of embarrassment. Because he didn't want to answer. He offered bribes. I'll give you business class life. I'll give you Rolls Royces and girls. Ima Rama Saratha Saturya. Don't ask that question. But yes, everybody wonders. I wondered for 50 years. What was his answer? Astityeche nast naivacha astiti anye. So, is there life after death or not? Na pretya sanjna asti. This is also Upanishads. And there is. What was his answer? Somehow, everybody escapes that question, in interpreters also. Suddenly he says, a big description, that with Tarka you cannot know this, that. But he's asked a question simple, after death is there or not? But we miss one very simple colloquial thing. He said, Om ityetat. Om means yes. Om iti means yes. That means the answer to the question, is there life after death, is yes. But yadichanto brahmacharyam charanti tatte padam sangrahena pravaksha. Suddenly the train has gone into another line. It's about Akshara Brahma Yoga, and we all interpret that. But what was the boy's question? Yes. So the culture becomes, on the one hand, a culture of asking the most uncomfortable, inconvenient questions fearlessly. Who is more scary than death? Death is the ultimate fearful thing. But this boy's courage, where is that courage coming from? From a recognition that all of us university educated people, very soon we unlearn that we don't know. We are limitation of our knowledge. If you fully know the limitation of your knowledge, like Heisenberg did, that we cannot with equal precision know both the position as well as the velocity of a particle. If we know more accurately the position, our knowledge of the velocity will become less. This limit of human knowledge. If you know where you are a Nachiketa, then you can have courage. But if you are insecure because you want to prove you know everything, then you will be afraid. A person, that is why Kena Upanishad says, I am covering other Upanishads also, Yasya amatam tasya matam. Avijñātam vijānatam. Brahma is unknown by people who know. So, in my conclusion, I'll come back. So, I told you, those who are used to studying Sanskrit texts, they will know that when point number 1 and point number 7 are the same, that means that is the tatparya of the text. Upakramopasangharayor aikyam. The same thing. Introduction is 1-1 of Isha Upanishad. Conclusion is 1-1. Everybody knows. Shankara gives two interpretations. Tyagena bhunjita iti nochate. Tyaktena bhunjita iti uchate. Vaishnava interpreters really marvel at this. They rejoice. Why? Tyaktena means first part of anything that you produce is to be offered to God. And what God leaves behind, Shesha, Prasada, Tena Bhogam Kuryat, Tyaktena, Ishena, Ishwarena, Jat Tyaktam, Jat Bhuktavashishtam. And this is not just pujas. In Yajna Shishtashina Santo Muchante Sarvakil Vishay. What is left over? So why that? But then comes the sentence, which is my central sentence, against greed. I'm not just giving some political advice here. I'm just translating Ishopanishad. I'm not talking about any particular situation here. This is eternal. But right now, it has become shameless. So I thought Vedanta should be mostly taught through this. Ma Gridha. Hindi is a great language. From the word Gridha comes the word for vulture. Geed. What is that Ramcharitmanas? Ajamila Geed Vyad. Geed is a vulture. Sri Ramakrishna says in his Gospels, a vulture may be very educated. It may go high, lofty. However lofty he may go, his eyes are on a dead body, on a corpse. So don't be like a vulture. Yes, eat, but let others eat also. Don't take it all. Magrida. First interpretation, Shankara says, it's a one sentence, one vacuum. Magrida kasya svidhanam. Kasyapi dhanam magrida. Don't covet your neighbor's wealth. Okay? It was more important in the West to use another W word. Don't covet your neighbor's wife. But here it says, don't covet your neighbor's wealth. Magrida kasya svidhanam. Second interpretation, Shankara says, Athava Magrida iti vakyam samaptam. Don't be greedy. Katham. Second is an independent. Kasya svidhanam. Shankara says, na kasya chititi. Dhana is not yours. Whatever you own, take the N out. What happens from owning? If you take N out, what happens? Owing. Rina. That's another part of the Vedas. Jayamano vai brahmana rinatrayana yukto jayate. Why did I choose this? Because Gandhi said, if all the Upanishads and all the other scriptures happened all of a sudden to be reduced to ashes, and if only the first verse in the Ishopanishad were left, he said, Indian civilization, Hinduism will live forever. Elsewhere he says, entire Indian civilization can be reconstructed just from this verse. Not only because of its pantheism or panentheism, but because of the ethics. Magrida. Think about it. Kasya svidhanam. You would say, do you mean to say Tyaga is the main advice for all? No. Mahabharata says, you might start being so proud and arrogant about how much Tyaga. I am a saffron-clad person, whether I do on the side politics or not, but I have given up everything. I have no family. To that, Mahabharata says, Yena tyajasi tat tyaja. So give up your renunciation also. That means just be a normal person, consume. We'll see, I'll quote from the Bhagavatam, a communist statement. So, I'll skip this. I had a quick summary of all the verses of Ishopanishad. There will be there, I'll not read them out. This is verse-wise, my own summary. Only one little thing, because in my introductory 5-minute speech that the Vice President was kind enough to allow me to speak for 5 minutes, I did say that 18 verses of Ishopanishad are elaborated by 18 chapters. You might wonder, there is Vishwarupa Darshana Yoga in Gita. Gita, by the way, is one of the prasthanas, everybody knows that, and it will be said many times in many papers here. Okay. In that, Mishra ji, I have just added a new thing because of the Nalanda University Bhagavata lectures, which will eventually come out. My humble submission is, Vedanta has 4 prasthanas. Shruti Prasthana Upanishad, Smriti Prasthana Bhagavad Gita, Tarka Prasthana Brahma Sutra, Rasa Prasthana Bhagavatam. The aesthetics and the emotional philosophy, that's in Bhagavatam. Not just Sringara, not just eroticism, friendship, Dasya Bhav, all the, if anybody knows the Bhagavatam, all the Bhavas, there is one verse where 10 sentiments, Thayi Bhavas, not exactly Bharata's list, are listed. Srupa Goswami in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu discusses that. And that one, I won't quote the whole thing, is called Mallanam Ashani. It begins with that. Remember? Rangangata Sagraja. Now, where is Vishwarupa Darshana Yoga? What happens? The most climax moment in 11th chapter, okay, is, remember, every discussion of Gita is at the heart of Vedanta. Vedanta is not just Tattvamasi. What happens? It says, Divi Surya Sahasrasya. If 1,000 suns in the midday suddenly get together, flash on the sky, like that blinding is your Prabha. And he says, please, please calm down. Take that off. And this, I can't stand this thing Arjuna says. I think this is commentary on Hiranmayena Patrena Satyasyapihitam Mukam. And what is the prayer? Tattvam Pushan Napavrino. Come to the more familiar form of truth. Satya Dharmaya Drishtaya. So this is subtlety you can find like that. And at the end, my last slide will show how 18th chapter and 18 shloka, they are commentaries of each other. Now, here is a cartoon where somebody says, okay, Lord, control my appetite if you want, but don't take my pie away. Okay? This person's first name could be Elon. The magic word, mine, from me to my, this is children's fight on one thing. Ye mera hai, tera nahi hai, etc. Now, I leave Sanskrit and English and theory of jurisprudence and private property. I come to simple, ordinary language philosophy. I, with a Shashti Vibhakti, possessive, genitive case, apostrophe S, or in English, the most mysterious word of, O-F, not double F, O-F. I think Naipal has a book called The House of Mr. Bishwas, of House of Ambani. My body, my land. Look at the opposite. Okay? Unless you are a megalomaniac like Trump, you don't think that you own the country. But my land, this is my land. Okay? And in US, United States, that almost national anthem, this land is my land, this land is your land. From California to something, there is a song, right? This my land, the Native Americans used to say, it's my land because I belong to this land, not because the land belongs to me. But my body belongs to me, definitely. You will see how important this possession, Sattva Samitva Sambandha, about my deha, my body. This Kalevara, it's mine. How did it become mine? I'll come to that when we do theory of private property. My labor, is it like my body? Not quite. I and my body are inseparable. But my labor goes from a dark room of Bangladesh laborers who make jeans that they cannot buy. It goes all over in this shop, which is like a Shunyavadi Buddhist. The shop is called Gap. Gap. And it uses Bangladeshi laborers' labor. Okay? My actions, my motives, my deeds, their consequences. Some of these actions are inactions. I was supposed to do something. Professor Nataraju gave a task. I didn't do anything. I just did not do it. As a result, some coordination failure happened. Some people were stranded on the road. I'm just joking, but it's an example. And you might say, well, I didn't strand them up. No, you did because I am not doing. By omission. That's why Gita says, akarmani cha karmaya. If you watch and in front of you, one of your colleague doctors is raped and you do nothing, then akarmani cha karmaya. So that's my action, my thoughts. This is very difficult. In what sense do I own my thoughts? When I was very, very drunk with success, this Gita 18 verses, 18 chapters, Upanishad, my thought, nobody has thought it. Somebody just told me that Rangaramanuja, in his commentary on Upanishad, says that Bhagavad Gita is a commentary. It's his thought. Who said it first? Right? We spend a lot of time in IKS departments. We said it long ago. Before Pythagoras we did this. But the thought does not belong to anyone. It doesn't matter who said it first. The thought is not like a learned. In fact, once we start with these examples, we shall see kasyasvid dhanam. Shankara makes it clear. It's not a question. It's a rhetorical question. He says, kasya chit dhanam na kasya chititi. Doesn't belong to anyone. My memory, very important for proving the existence of a self which is permanent. Whose memory? My word, differently. I give you my word, promising. This is not because in the dictionary I have invented the word. It's my word, not because I am giving a part of my finger, that's my word. No. It's my commitment. Very different kind of possessive. My knowledge. My parents. Hey, do they belong to me or do I belong to them? My daughter. Opposite. My property, wealth, money, bank balance. That's the main thing. My time, sorry, I'm stealing your precious time. Except that if any of you tell me, look, you took a lot of my time, I would just humbly ask, what made that time your time? Where did you buy that? Kala pachati, but how is it mama kala? It's my time, my private time, people say. Okay? Growing up in America, American citizen, my daughter also used to say, Baba, this is my time. I said, oh, really? I mean, how did it become your time? Did you inherit? Did you, bid for it? Like time was being sold. I gave the maximum price, so I got it. How did it become my time? About this Janaka, said the last thing. I told you, for this Kasya Svidhanam, Mahabharata has episodes after episodes. Janaka, he says, Atma pichayam namama Sarvava Prithivi Mama. Even myself is not mine, or else the entire world is mine. There are only two senses of mind. One in which even myself doesn't belong. In fact, Janak almost says, like a Buddhist, there is nothing. I don't own myself. There is no myself. Others, the five skandhas own me. There, I cannot say, out of these skandhas, there is a separate alaya vijnana, that's mine. No. Atma pichayam namo. But if I really want to say, then as an idealist I could say, unless I open my eyes, this world is not there. There's a very beautiful Sri Krishna Karnamrita Stotra, where Krishna is in the daytime wanting his nocturnal night share of the butter. There is a separate butter which is kept for the evening. And Yashoda says, no, not now, it's in the evening. So the child Krishna asks, what is evening? When it is dark. He closes his eyes. He says, now give me, it's dark. A double meaning. Vyanjana is that when Krishna closes his eyes, then everything is dark, right? Okay. So, I come to the heart of my talk. Sorry, by now you thought I have already come to the feet of the talk, but I have only reached the heart. This lecture examines the possession relation between a person and the property or wealth or money that they own. Kasya svit dhanam. I'll skip the Raghunatha Shiromani thing. He discusses three definitions. First definition, to be owned by X. I was coming and I was asking the boy who was bringing me in the car. I said, but there is a public road here that DLS or wherever we are staying. What's that thing? Delnet. So Delnet building is that outside the campus? They said, no, this is land that JNU owns. Right? So to be owned by X is to be actually employed or consumed according to the will of X. Yasya ichchaya niyantritam kathyanchid vastu tad vastu tasya iti lakshanam. Simple. To avoid such undercoverage, Raghunatha first tries out the modally strengthened definition. Now, suppose you die, but the property is yours. You never get to live there. Most people who have a decent level of, we all nowadays aspire, because we have got vikas, we expect that in different countries we will have land, and we don't have the yogaja power to live in all those people in the places in the same time. So we don't live where we don't consume. So that definition is too narrow. Avyapti dosh. Yat yena vasyam tat tasya dhanam. You cannot say that. There are many acres of land of simple landowners where they don't dwell and which is controlled by others. So how could you? He says, fitness for use as one wishes, as one wishes. Okay? Use. What does use mean? Legitimate use. Now, if a whole lot of beggars or Occupy Wall Street people come and sit on your land, they are using it. No, but they are using it, they are not legitimate users. Here is Raghunatha's genius. Raghunatha says, so now we see, we were trying to define ownership in terms of other properties. Properties, other factors, without presupposing the definition of, so the definition should not be circular, right? We have tried many things, like whoever uses the land is owner, that didn't work. Whoever is a legitimate, then Raghunatha says legitimate means what? According to law. What law? Is it criminal law? No. If you probe, then that definition will say the law which controls Swattva Samitva. Then you are mentioning the definiendum in the definition. So all definitions of Swattva Samitva, possession, become circular. From this, without displeasing, after all, people who lived in Navadvip had to keep the local landlords happy. Okay. So Raghunatha said, this is a separate category. You would rather displease Nyaya Vaisheshika, who said 7 and not more than 7 are padarthas. He said, no, Sattva Samitva is a 8th padartha. But in trying to the lesson that Raghunatha learns from this is that the possessedness that is produced in things, suddenly I produce a document. You know, a family of farmers have been generations tilling the ground, and another family was getting all the crops and selling that, and the farmer was getting a small amount. Right? Why? Because if the farmer challenged, he said, I have been living here, I have been producing the crops, somebody would show him a document. But there is a document. What does the document show? It is produced in things. Like Bhatta Mimamsakas say that when Raghunath Ghosh looks at the red chair, in the red chair there is a property called knownness, jnatata, which is produced certainly. That still can be understood. But here it is even more bizarre, and we take it for granted. That if somebody can produce a document, near Ashoka University, the villagers are there, and they say that we can't argue against them. Because, you know, Ashoka University people, just one after another, just taking the land. Why? They have got a piece of paper. The transaction has happened between people who have never lived there. And people who have lived there, they have been told, take a 1 lakh of rupees and go away somewhere else. That's the economy. Why? Because Sattva Samitva has been produced suddenly. How produced? Now, John Locke, who is basically great philosopher, epistemologist, essay concerning human understanding, but Locke is also the first philosophical defender of the American occupation of this new world, of basically killing off the Native Americans, which in India we learned in a racist manner to call them Red Indians and so on. So, Locke's argument was, every man owns his own body. You cannot question that. Please pay attention to this one. I'm coming close to the end. Every man owns his own body because it is nobody else's body. Naturally, there is a special relationship between me. It becomes interesting when in Nyaya philosophy, all of our souls are everywhere. It's not that my soul is here only. That's only much laughed at Jaina philosophy. Otherwise, Atma for Nyaya is Vibhu, everywhere. Why aren't they getting mixed up? Like right now, Hiraman's soul is in Greenland, in Alaska. And Sarah Palin's soul is also in a village in Bengal. It's everywhere. All of them. Sarve Atmanaha Vibhu Padartha.
My soul is always with my wife.
With your wife? Okay. So your soul is
As per your logic.
always with your wife. By my logic of Vibhutva, unfortunately, by the same logic, it will all other wives also. So this is the question. How can it become only confined to? And I think, especially in older age, it will be much more useful if your body is always with the wife rather than the soul. Because you can always say, although I travel around all the world, but my soul is with you. although the body is in some five-star hotel. And so on. So let's come back to the body question. So the body has a very special relationship. Vilakshana samyoga. Sarva murta dravya samyogi is vibhu. The Atma is sarva murta dravya samyogi. Whatever there is murtiman or murtimati, the body, the Atma has a connection with samyoga. But vilakshana samyoga only with my body. But Locke said every man owns his body because it is nobody else's body. The labor of his body, second premise, is part of the body, hence owned by him. You cannot take away. Labor is abstract. My labor is mine because it is coming from my body. Mera pasina, my sweat. Right? Whatever he has mixed his labor with, for example, the grain produced by the mixture of his labor with the seeds and the soil, he has made his own property. This is Locke's definition and justification of private property, which even Marx admits. He therefore has an inalienable right to his property as his right to his own body. Just as you cannot say your body is not yours. Okay? Although 19th century, upper class people, both Brahmins and Kshatriyas and Zamindars and all, they regularly purchased the body of beautiful courtesans. And their body didn't belong to the courtesans, but they belonged to the upper caste person. She couldn't say it's my body is mine. And why just blaming 19th century landlords? I mean, all the lords at home were like that. Your body is mine. Now, but Locke has a good clause. As long as there is enough and as good left in common for others. If you leave enough for others, then you have ownership. But without the permissions and prohibitions of a set of other possible possessors. So if others have not given me the permission to use a particular piece of land, then I don't own my body or my land. Now, again, there are 10 arguments given on the basis of this, not on Locke, that Proudhon, okay, a French guy, he gives that, I will not repeat them, it's on the screen. 10 arguments against why private property cannot be accepted. Now, any society like the Indian, which believes, and Buddhist, which believes in dana, gift, cannot abolish private property. Why? Because you don't give public property, you give private property. You have, what you give should hurt you. Why does it hurt you? Because it was yours. And that's why the greatest stories of gift in Mahabharata are gift of the body itself, like Shivi Upakhyana. Just for the food of a hawk which wanted the pigeon, and the pigeon is small, but they said, let us weigh. And finally, Shivi protected the pigeon and his body had to be cut off. So, it has to be his. So now I am coming to the paradox. It is obligatory, the Veda says, first premise. It is obligatory that I give some property to X when P is a material substance, not love. I can't say, by I rupiya nahi de sakta hu, pyar de sakta hu. You cannot do that. Something that belongs to you, right? Not just verbal assurance. And X is any other person who has much less P than I have. And often you can give it because it belongs to you. Unless, of course, you are ICCSR or ICSSR or ICPR secretary or chairman, where you can gift property which doesn't belong to you also. Right? But you are a trustee. You are looking after it. That's why. Otherwise, ultimately, so third premise, I can give P only if I own P. Now, Tyaktena bhunjitha, one interpretation is tyaktena danena. You make your property enjoyable, consumable, legitimately, according to Vedic ethics, only if you first pay back your gift, your debts, taxes, atithi seva. So all the 5 rinas, okay, you have to give it first. First give, and then with the rest you enjoy. So giving is not an option. It is not an additional thing for which you can't demand, I have given so much, so give me some tax relief. That's not giving. Giving is when it is obligatory. Nitya karma. It is not a kamya karma. It is a nitya karma. Datavyam iti yaddanam diyate anupakarine. Somebody who has not benefited you and will not benefit you in the past. If in this conference somebody comes, and many people will, I'm warning you, Professor Mishra, and just कुछ भी नहीं चाहिए, just a nice gold kalam, pen ले लीजिए. You will have to think many times. Why? Because it is not diyate anupakarine. Upakarine diyate. Future upakari also upakari. So, but the Vedic tatavyam avashyam, shraddhaya deyam, दातव्यम इति यद्दानम, सात्विकम दानम गीतायाम, दातव्यम इति यद्दानम दीयते अनुपकारिणे. That is data. That's obligatory. Now, the paradox is thickening. I can give P only if I own P. Now, fourth premise, I own P if and only if I am permitted and have the right to use P in any socially harmless way, including keeping all of P to myself. I must have that freedom. Unless I have that freedom, I don't own it. So, जितना ये प्रॉपर्टी है, सब कुछ हम रख सकते हैं अपने के लिए, खुद के लिए. ये स्वतंत्रता मेरा है. This is part of the right to property that I will decide how I change it. If I am permitted to keep all of P for myself, then I cannot at the same time be obliged to give part of P away. देख रहे हो हीरामन? देखो. On one side, you have to give part of it away. On the other side, it must be owned by you. That means you are not bound to give it. Asvechaya. That means यदि इच्छा स्यात् न दास्यामि इति तत्र अपराधो न स्यात्. परंतु दातव्यम अवश्यम इत्यत्र अपराधो स्यात्. Therefore, from 1 to 5 premises, by closing our conditional proof, it follows that if it is obligatory that I give P, then it is not obligatory that I give P. This is the paradox. It is not obligatory that I give P, but it is obligatory to give P. I've already talked about taking the N out. Here comes the communism of Srimad Bhagavatam, that Rasa Prasthana. It says, how much money should you earn and keep? Yavat briyeta jataram, as much as you need to survive and fill up yours and your family's stomach. With swatvam, tavat swatvam hideya. It is not saying you don't earn more, but your ownership finishes there. How much you need. Adhikam yo abhimanyeta. One who would ask for more. Profit increase. That's what that decent science of management teaches. I asked. They wanted an ethics of management book to be published, and I have written in that. I asked them, define management. They said, it is a very efficient way of increasing profit in business. There is no other definition. For all work ethics, everything is for that. Adhikam yo abhimanyeta. Sasteno, he is a thief. Dandamarhati, the king should punish him. Not reward him, but punish him. Whoever has more than he needs. So we come back to the beginning. 4 parts. Ishavasyamidam sarvam. Yatkincha jagatyam jagat. I need all your blessings. I have started writing a Kashmir Shaiva commentary on Ishopanishad. And in the first verse I have completed, and there I take the feminine gender of Jagati seriously, because it is the name of a Vedic chanda with 12 letters in every pada, Dvadashakshara vritti. And in Kashmir Shaivism, in Kramatantrism, there are 12 Kalis, Dvadasha Kalika. So Jagatyam Jagat I interpret that way. And Ishavasyam, not as eat, is a Vedic word of which the Tritiya is Isha, but I take Isha Shabdasya Strilingam Isha. Isha Avasyam, Isha, this Tritiya Tatpurush Samasa. So Isha, Durga, Parvati, Taya, Avasyam, Isha Avasyam iti kritva anyadapi magridakasya siddhanam. So, I told you that I will end with a second defense. I said, Hiranmayena Patrena Ekadasha Adhyaya. I will end by saying, what is the final gist of the Smriti Prasthana Gita of Vedanta? Krishna himself tells us. He underlines it. It's like a highlighter. On the 18th chapter, one verse, he said, Sarva Gujyatamam Bhuya Shrume Paramam Vacha. Listen to me. Manumana Bhavamad Bhakto Madhyaji. And that's also sequential. Last, ultimate. Mam Namaskuru. This, Namaskuru. How does this Upanishad end? Bhuishtham te nama uktim videma. 18th verse, 18th chapter. Namah purastat atha prishtatasche namastute sarvata eva sarva. And what does that word nama mean? Not just a word of bhakti. It means namama. Thank you.
I now request Professor Sachchidananda Mishra, Member Secretary, ICPR, New Delhi, to give his remarks.
Namaste. So, you have listened to very good presentation, very good lecture by Professor Arindam Chakrabarti. And the talk was centered around the topic Vedanta for equality. How Vedanta can be the foundation stone for equality. And here the idea was taken from Ishavasyopanishad, and how this idea is supported by the different doctrines, and he very beautifully highlighted the similarity and dissimilarity between Buddhism and Advaita philosophy. For Buddhism, there is no Atman, and for Advaitism, there is everything Atman. And both ways we reach at equality. If there is no Atman, so there is no mind. If Atman is not there, if I am not there, how there could be something mine? And if everybody is identical with Atman, then where is the place for inequality? So you can see that these two philosophies, which are many times put against each other, Professor Arindam Chakrabarti has presented the idea, and not only, I would not say that it is his idea, because he is not saying like that. He is quoting Mahabharata to support this idea. So, we can see that at present time, when Buddhism is put against the Upanishadic wisdom, Upanishadic thought, and it is argued that whereas Advaita philosophy is the following the traditional wisdom, Buddhism is going against it, and Buddhism is actually very much taking the side of communism or equality, and here Advaita philosophy is not taking that step. But from this presentation it is very clear that Vedanta is also in a very good way presenting the idea, and it is actually, I think, easy to understand and easy to follow, because it goes against our intuition. When you are saying that there is no Atman, you are not there, and it is very difficult to understand, if I am not there, why should I act, and how there will be our action, why there is possibility of my action or not. But when you expand this I, this Atman, yasya sarvani bhutani atmaiva bhut bijanatah tatra kaha loko lobha kaha shokaha ekatvam anupashyatah. So that is actually the ethics of Vedanta, that is actually ethics of Upanishads, and this is very bad that we have forgotten the ethics of Vedanta. And present time, what can be done, I think, if we could follow the ethics of Vedanta, that will be one guidance for this 21st century world. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Mishra, for this very short remark. I now request Professor Sukalyan Senbukta, Center for Indic Studies UMass Dartmouth, to address the gathering.
To represent the Center for Indic Studies, which is one of the co-hosts of this conference. As some of you may know, let me give you a little bit of a history, very short history. This conference was started by Professor Ramarao Pappu. He was at the Miami University in Ohio in the philosophy department, and it was held at his campus. And for a number of years, and Professor Chakrabarti just told us today morning that the logo that you see from the Mundaka Upanishad was Sudaya Suparna. This logo was actually painted by him at the request of Professor Pappu. So Professor Pappu, he ran this conference for many, many years. About 10 years ago or 15 years ago, when he retired from his university, the question then arose, what will happen to this conference? And at that time, Center for Indic Studies at the University of Massachusetts, Dartmouth, we proposed that we will receive it as kind of a trusteeship, not ownership, trusteeship. We will run it for as long as we can. And at that same time, almost at the same time, it was decided that JNU and we will alternate the venues. So typically, it is held at JNU in, let's say, December, January. And the following year in summer, New England summers are very, prized in terms of the climate. So the following summer, the next year summer, it will be held at University of Massachusetts, Dartmouth. That was the original plan, but as you know, because of the pandemic that was disrupted. So we are coming back to the in-person form with this conference. Our last two conferences were online. And at the same time that we decided to host it and co-sponsor it, we also decided to kind of have a more expansive meaning of this word Vedanta. As Professor Chakrabarti said, I mean, the regular definition, Vedanta, Nama, Upanishad, Pramana. So that Pramana, as a Pramana system, yes, it has a very solid foundation. It needs constant reinvigoration through discussion, debate, dialogue. Yes, that's all very nice. But many people who may not be as much into philosophy and yet still can get the benefits, how do we reach to them? How do we get input from them? It's bi-directional. So we decided to expand this term Vedanta to include more discussion with pure science people, applied science people, public servants, all walks of life. And so that there is this exchange, this cross-fertilization that will then help everybody. And I mean, today you heard the Vice President talk of, and the Vice Chancellor talk of Nari Shakti. So again, as part of the history of this conference, there is one session which is a debate session which is held exclusively in Sanskrit. So that has become very popular now, as many of you may know. But this is the first time that we will having that debate, which will be an all-women's panel. Okay? So again, we have to bring some things new. And you may have seen the proceedings of every conference until 2020. The book for the 2017 conference will be inaugurated very soon. So again, continuity, and yet at the same time, new themes, new ideas. So you heard the Vice President talk of artificial intelligence, for example. Just to give you an example, what does Vedanta have to offer in, I mean, not only are we talking about artificial intelligence, we are talking about artificial consciousness even. So what can Vedanta tell us? What light can it shed, etc., etc. So the idea being we are constantly expanding on this domain. Philosophy, of course, is absolutely a must that underpins every discussion we have, but we do have to extend the branches to other fields of knowledge. So with that, thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor. I now request Professor A. Nataraju, Director of this 27th International Congress of Vedanta, to extend the vote of thanks.
Namaste, good afternoon. Good to host all of you, and good to see many of you traveling in the chilly winter conditions and bearing the cold. Thank you being here with us. 98, 99, I was part of the organizing committee of the Vedanta Congress at Usmania. So it's 25 years, and again I get an opportunity. Thank you, Center for Indic Studies. And particularly we must start thanking the sponsors, And the best of them all is here. A big round of applause. If without ICPR, all that wonderful menu, gear up for tomorrow, the idli, vadas and sambas. My body, my food. Get ready for that. So end of the day, in a Vyavaharika Jagat, there is nothing which is a mithyatva is not there. The Vyavaharika. 295 abstracts received, a robust response for the call for papers, 90 rejected, we apologize for them, 205 paper presentations, 4 parallel sessions, 3 days, 9 o'clock to 9 o'clock, 12 hours of laborious sitting. Please don't shop. No India Gate photographs, please. And hope we will put up with all these sessions, couple of panel discussions, plenaries, book releases, every day at 6:30, the same hall. And a wonderful mantra concert, Bhajan Sandhya by ISKCON people, tomorrow, 6:30. And in Sanskrit, there are several papers, Vimshatyadhikani patrani santi, Dvetrini satrani samskrite eva vartante. There are wonderful young guest faculties from Central Sanskrit institutions. 20 papers in Sanskrit and 15 in Hindi, remaining 118 in English. And keeping in and the continuity of the tradition, we have one Shastra Sabha, Vakyartha Vichara, and we named it Janapada Kalyani Shastra Sabha, aged between 28 and 35, that's the criteria. All women-led Shastra Sabha, all Maitriyis and Gargis on the show, all women-led. So, our Honorable Vice Chancellor was very happy, So, series of initiatives, and thank you Central Sanskrit University. Srinivasa Varakhediji will join us for the valedictory. He is out of station, otherwise he would have been with us. And other sponsors, someone sponsoring a dinner, somebody else is sponsoring, any other thing. And still, if you think that we have not given you an opportunity to sponsor something, we don't mind. Thank you very much. And we like all those people, instead of big lectures, those who sponsor, those who talk about money. Thank you very much. That's Balram Singh ji's formula. Where there is some, Here is an address by Professor Ramarao Papu. Look at this, and then we will continue. Thank you.
Honorable Vice President, Shruti Smriti Purananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavad Padam Sankaram Loka Sankaram. Honorable Vice President Shri Jagdeep Dhankhar, Honorable Vice Chancellor Dr. Santishree Dhulipudi Pandit, Professor Arindam Chakrabarti, Dr. Sachchidananda Mishra, Professor Chukaljan Sengupta, and Professor Nataraju Adrasupally. Namaskar to everybody. I am Ramarao Papu, founder of the International Congress of Vedanta. I am sorry I could not attend the Vedanta Congress being held at the Jawaharlal Nehru University due to health reasons. The first Vedanta Congress was held at Miami University, Oxford, Ohio, where I teach, to commemorate the birth centennial of the great philosopher-statesman Sarvepalli Radhakrishnan. On a personal note, I studied philosophy inspired by Radhakrishnan's writings. Also, Radhakrishnan's family and our family, especially two of his daughters, were neighbors in Hyderabad. And I think I am the only philosophy student who met Radhakrishnan twice when he was President of India. First as a MA previous student, second time when I passed my final exams in MA and stood university second. After I finished my MA degree exam, I had the honor to meet President Radhakrishnan, who asked me how I did in my exams, and I told him I got a first class, and then slowly asked him, "Sir, what can I do with a philosophy degree in MA?" And he gave a wonderful kind of a smile, and he said, "Seriously, you can become the President of India." I can never forget the humor when he said that you can become the President of India with a philosophy degree. Anyway, after finishing my MA degree, I moved on to USA for further studies, and from 1965 onwards, I have been staying for almost now 60 years in USA. When I was casually talking to one of Radhakrishnan's daughters, who was then in USA, she told me that 1988 was the Radhakrishnan's birth centennial year. And immediately I thought of organizing the Radhakrishnan Centennial Conference, which I did in April 1988. Nearly 150 scholars from all over the world attended the conference. Professor John Kenneth Galbraith, who was the former US ambassador to India and a great Harvard economist, he gave the inaugural address and spent a lot of time with the conference delegates. P.K. Kaul, who was the Indian ambassador to USA, who attended the conference also, sent glowing report of the conference to the government of India. Then President R. Venkataraman, D.P. Chattopadhyaya and K. Sachchidananda organized another Radhakrishnan Centennial Conference in a very, very grand way. In the Parliament House, the conference meetings were held, and we had receptions in the Rashtrapati Bhavan. They have invited all the foreign scholars, providing them full hospitality, transportation, etc. It was then I have named this particular conference and following conferences International Congress of Vedanta. By the way, Professor Arindam Chakrabarti, who is there on the dais, he visited USA for the first time to the Radhakrishnan Centennial Conference. The logo of the Vedanta Congress, the two birds, Divasupani, was also drawn by him. No sooner I finished Radhakrishnan Centennial Conference in 1988, it was my turn to organize the 1200th anniversary of Shankaracharya in 1990. Again, it was followed by another centennial of Swami Vivekananda's sojourn to America and his participation in the Parliament of World Religions in 1992. Other centennial conferences I have organized under the rubric of the Vedanta Congress are the 700th Sanjeevan Samadhi of Sri Gyaneshwara and the Jiddu Krishnamurti Centennial Conference. Over the so many years, we had informal membership of over 500 scholars. Some of the scholars who have attended the conferences came from USA, Germany, England, Israel, Netherlands, Finland, Denmark, Russia, Singapore, Japan, Australia, England, Trinidad, Guyana, Barbados. It was truly an international conference. Hinduism Today, which is a very prominent newspaper in this part of the world, it said the attendees of these conferences read like, "Who is who in Indian philosophy?" A sample of these attendees were B.K. Matilal, J.N. Mohanty, Karl Potter, Elliot Deutsch, R. Balasubramaniam, K. Sachchidananda, Alex Wyman, E.C.G. Sudarshan, Subhash Kok, S.S. Barlinge, Ashok Akluzkal, Aravind Sharma, T.S. Rukmini, G.S. Nayak, etc. Here, I should also make a special mention of Dr. Karan Singh, who started taking interest in my Vedanta conferences when he was Indian ambassador to USA and continued his support for me all through. And also Professor Sachchidananda encouraged me a lot, and I always turn to him for advice in these conferences. Though the Vedanta Congress has started with a narrowly focused group for the study of Vedantic texts and their interpretation, we have enlarged the scope of Vedanta during these years to include all aspects of Indian philosophy and religion, including Buddhism and Jainism, B, applied Indian philosophy, and in recent years, philosophical aspects of mathematics, physics, science and technology. As a result of the enlargement of the scope of Vedanta, our conferences were attended by Indologists and physicists. In one of the conferences, a big plenary was named the Brahman of Physics, with eminent physicists like E.C.G. Sudarshan, Amit Goswami, etc., and eminent mathematicians like Sriram Abhyankar were participating. I am glad to see that in recent years, Rajiv Malhotra is working on Vedantic aspects of computer science and artificial intelligence. By the way, I also want to mention that a few physicians also were attending the conference. There was once a lively debate between an ophthalmologist and somebody was reading a paper on Pratyaksha. And so the ophthalmologist was telling, I have been examining the patients for long, that is not how the Pratyaksha works. Anyway, as a side note, I also want to say that 1 or 2 sessions in the conferences were held in the Sanskrit medium, giving the audience a taste how Sanskrit Pandits discuss philosophical problems in Sanskrit, giving the audience to take the audience back to the times when Vedantic texts were always discussed in conferences similar to this. Though most of the conferences were held in my university, which is Miami University, several conferences were held in Madras, Visakhapatnam, Rishikesh, Hyderabad, Port of Spain, Trinidad, etc. The Vedanta Congress held in Madras was indeed remarkable because Srimati M.S. Subbulakshmi, who was in bad health at that time, gave her very last performance to the Vedanta conference because, as she said, Vedanta is her love of life. I have also held mini Vedanta sessions in conjunction with the World Congress of Philosophies in Brighton, England, and in Moscow, Russia. After organizing 17 conferences over a period of 20-25 years, when I turned age 70, I thought I should dissolve the Vedanta Congress. Scholars who have attended the Vedanta Congress know I am the Vedanta Congress, Yakameva Advitiyam. Rather, my wife Suryakantam and me are the Vedanta Congress. I took care of the program aspects of it, and she took care of the conference arrangements, lodging, transportation, meals, etc., etc. And when we turned 70, she told me, honey, I cannot do these conferences anymore. My immediate reply was, I will not do it anymore. So, when I almost announced the end of the Vedanta Congress, when I turned 70, Rajiv Malhotra rushed to me and said that such a great conferences series should not end, and suggested that it may move to the India Studies Center in the University of Massachusetts in Dartmouth, Boston. So, the Vedanta Congress is reborn from Miami University, Miami, to Boston, which is the land of the Boston Brahmins. They are called the New England Transcendentalists, Emerson, Thoreau, Walt Whitman, etc., etc. So, thank you for giving me this opportunity, and I wish the conference all success. Bye.
Thank you, Professor Ramarao Pappu garu. he couldn't come because of health reasons, but last 1 month, believe me, every other day he would call me, and minimum half an hour. What's happening, who is coming, his heart is here. And and then the later part of the story is, Professor Balram Singh ji, Sukalyan ji, they are, under their leadership, they're taking it forward. And we got an opportunity at JNU, and a batch of young, enthusiastic, Super 30 we call them. There are 30 volunteers who have put in extremely good job last 1 month. They are putting up a show. So if things are going well, and if you are getting good food and your stay is good, then all that goes to them. And if there is any problem, any mistake, you blame it on me. Thank you very much. And Professor Arindam ji, the last, but he is the one that should be thanked for all the trouble of traveling from Kolkata, Sachchidananda Mishra ji. And Narasimhananda Swami from the Ramakrishna Mission, Kozhikode, he traveled all the way for a panel discussion on the Vedanta schools. And another Swami from Ramakrishna Mission, Atma Shraddhananda ji, will come for the valedictory. And I will read both the messages. I believe you are all waiting for the lunch. Shatam vihaya bhoktavyam. We will go for the food, but I will read both the messages. One, blessings from Bharati Tirtha Mahaswami of Sringeri Sharada Pitha. We received the message and blessings. And another message from Gautamananda Swami, Ramakrishna Mission, President of the Belur Mutt. Both the messages are there printed in the abstracts booklet. And thank you, DK Print World, for Sushil Mittalji, wonderfully brought out. You will get your bags, kit, and all the program leaflets and abstract booklet. Dhanyavada, namaste. Let's go. Lunch, please.